The Irrational Confidence Podcast.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Irrational Confidence Podcast. We're talking college football, and it is episode 2 of Rivalry Week. We had so many games that we wanted to get to this week, so many important games with so much chaos and anarchy going on in the college football landscape. Hey, one episode wouldn't hold it, not even 2. We are going to drop a third episode for you, so make sure you don't miss a single moment of the action. Hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, get notified every single time we drop a new episode. I'm joined by my co-host, the man who found a wooden shoe in his toilet. It was just clogged. My co-host, Fresh. Fresh, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, I'm doing great. At least I'm not Dutch. We got an exciting slate tonight. A lot of amazing games. Obviously, rivalry weekend. There's a cliche, throw the record books out. But in some of these games, the record books don't matter. Like, it's just absolute chaos. You spend the entire year thinking about this opponent. And then with the 12-team playoff, obviously they're in conference title, in bowl games and getting eligible for all that nonsense. That just heightens the need for getting wins or knocking off your rival and ruining their season. So these games, there's something different than you playing in September or early October. They mean a lot more, this time of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. These are big games, a lot of meaningful implications, especially for some of the other teams. It's only a couple of these games, it feels like only one team has implications, but the other team can play spoiler in this. I'm excited for this one, Fresh. I really, really am, and special one at the end. But let's get this ball rolling here. Let's get cruising right down the track. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish, they're 10-1. They're at the time of record, they are the 6th seed, ranked number 6. They're going and facing their rival in LA, the USC Trojans. At time of record, the spread right now is Notre Dame -7, over under set at 50.5 right now, or 51.5. I'm sorry, it just moved. Fresh, Notre Dame is on their way to just clinching a playoff spot. They've been quietly one of the most impressive teams in college football and have benefited from maybe all the other chaos just by quietly winning. USC, it's been a complete dumpster fire by them, barely beating UCLA, their crosstown rivals, last week by 6 points. USC has played some teams tough. A lot of one-score losses on their resume. Notre Dame, with all the chaos, let me ask you this, Fresh. If Notre Dame were to lose this football game, because weird, wacky stuff happens in upset games, would that eliminate Notre Dame, or has there been so much chaos that Notre Dame's kind of locked in?
I think it probably drops them to like 10 or 11, because you have to look at that schedule. You did lose to Northern Illinois, and that has to stand for something. Because if we look at your wins and losses, and we've talked about wins and losses, and then to split the hairs, strength of schedule and quality wins and quality losses, that's a terrible loss. And Northern Illinois did not win the MAC. They're not even playing for a MAC title. And that right there we can't forget about that in September. Yes, they beat Texas A&M opening week, and it wasn't exactly an offensive showcase. They grinded it out. They did what they had to do. They won. Has their schedule been less than stellar? Florida State being absolute hot garbage hurt them very bad.
Right.
No one else in the schedule outside the service academies really pops in my memory. It's like, all right, that was actually a valiant effort or legit, game. And we even knew, folks, Navy and Army were going to be at deficiencies playing Notre Dame. That was not going to be a surprise. Right. They're not built the same. Notre Dame is a good football team. We can't deny that fact. They have quality offensive, defensive linemen, players on the special spots. They were going to eventually wear down the service academies. That Army being ranked in the top 25 is fantastic, and then still being a one-loss team is great. I think they're still one of the 25 best teams in the country, but it's a ranked win, but we have to take that with some jest. Because Army, if they got in the playoff, it would dismissed just like they were in Yankee Stadium. That schedule for Notre Dame, it hasn't popped like it normally. They might have a couple other teams, USC being down this year and Florida State being down, and it's just it lacks the sizzle. They've just gone through it. They've done what they had to do, and you're a big proponent of it. Just win the games in front of you. It's on the schedule.
Right.
They're going to win, but they're not winning big matchups. And that's what I think we've seen Notre Dame in the past also. They get in the playoff or they go to, national championship game and they get boat raced by somebody. So I would drop them depending on the loss. If they got smoked by USC, they're out. That just shows an average, Southern Cal team just destroyed you. If it's a one-score loss, an upset, crazy fluke play, whatnot, I drop them maybe 10 or 11. You also have to factor the rest of the excitement of the weekend. Maybe 10, 11 getting that, but they will not be hosting a playoff game for that. So they've got to show up. They've got to be ready to play in the Coliseum. And don't ruin their season, from that perspective.
What makes this Notre Dame team special? Like I definitely would have to say on my end, I'm looking at the running attack that they have developed. I mean, take a look at this: 2,400 yards on the season, 37 touchdowns. Now, Ashton Genty would like to do that by himself, but that is an impressive ground attack.
And personally, I love the defense. And I mean, I'm still, it pains me with Benjamin Morrison not being on this roster because he got hurt.
That's a good point.
And sitting it out. But that defense, they have a strong front. They find ways to get pass rush. The secondary is playing well. Watts is an amazing safety back there.
Right.
That right there gives them, and they already shown, A&M was week one, but they've shown they can go down into a hostile environment and get it done, in that environment at that time. That defense is what keeps them going and would allow them to compete with the Oregons, the Ohio States, the Georgias, the Tennessees, the Indianas, the SMUs, the Miamis of the world. They've already shown, they gave Ohio State all they could handle last year. And Al Golden is an amazing defensive coordinator, plus Morgan Sherman head coach. They know what they're doing. And with Riley Leonard quarterback being a lot more confident than Sam Hartman was and Love at running back, it gives them a chance to slow the game down, manage time possession, manage, the production of the opposing offense and keep them in football games. I think they're taking a different look at it than they did under Brian Kelly. And that gives them a way to compete at a high level.
Would you trade Watts for Starks if you could right now?
They both have their unique abilities. I think Starks has definitely had a lesser year this year in 2024 than the previous two seasons.
Right.
On the spot, I don't know if I would, but they're plug and play. They're both fantastic players. They're my 1-2 preseason, all first team All-American state. Well, Caleb Downs is in there too. But the three of them are absolutely phenomenal safeties, and it'd be tough because they both bring unique aspects to the game that make it really, really, make them really special.
I just think about all the talent that Notre Dame has had at safety like the last couple of years. You talk about they have Watts going there, and then a couple of years ago, Hamilton over there playing safety was just a freak athlete. People were, when we did our draft episode, I was like, Kyle Hamilton should be I think I had him as like a top 3 or 4 pick. And people were like, what are you, crazy? I was like, this kid is just an amazing football player. And it shows the culture that kind of Notre Dame has developed, especially on the defensive side of the football. The only thing that really concerns me is their passing attack. It's been okay. It's not terrible. But again, if they go up against an elite secondary, are they going to be able to throw the football when someone tries to stack 8 in the box or 7 in the box to stop the run?
Well, I think even more if they go against a team that can actually tackle. Because if you can get a couple points, if you bring guys in the box, that's one thing. But if they actually tackle at the point of contact and you're not getting, extra yak, then that's a serious problem. Because then you have no way to drop them off the line of scrimmage. Put no threat to push them. They're going to keep creeping up. So if you're going against a team that's hasn't tackled as well, like if they're playing Georgia right now, that Georgia defensive line up front seven would give them trouble, but the Georgia tackling ability has been less than superb. From here, it's been very inconsistent all year long. That right there could be an indicator of, we'll run the ball on them because I don't know if they're going to tackle us all day long. But if you're a team that can tackle hard and get up in your face, like Ohio State's been very, very solid as of late tackling, or Oregon the same way, then you run into a challenge because you're not going to get that second or third opportunity. The first guy's going to probably wrap you up on point of contact. And then you're going to have to really throw to bring that linebacker, get him to look over his shoulder, drop that safety a little bit farther back. The corner won't be able to, jump a little short routes and some short passes because they're going to have to actually worry about the wide receivers and their threats. So it's going to be interesting how it schemes out. But Notre Dame, they have to manage their own offense. Riley Leonard with his legs, being a mobile quarterback, does help alleviate some of that stress because now it gives you multiple options in the backfield.
Fresh, what do you need to see from a guy like Jaden Maeva for USC? You know, he's taken over the starting reins the last 2 weeks. Again, 500 yards passing, 4 touchdowns to 1 interception. Kids played well in Lincoln Riley's offense. But Nebraska and UCLA's pass defense is not the Notre Dame pass defense. Again, both of us would on jump take Notre Dame in the points probably. I think.
Oh, no, hand down. 7. Yeah, it's a 7. I'm taking 7 in a heartbeat.
Yeah,
hammering it.
But what would you say if you're talking to a USC fan and saying, what do you need to see from Jaden Maeva that should give them faith that this is the guy going forward in Southern California for the next couple of years?
I think he's going to have to get confident and trust his eyes. Because he has the legs and he has an arm, but you've got to trust your eyes on how to make decisions down the field. You're not playing the Mountain West anymore. And it's obviously he's been late in getting rotated in after Miller Moss got benched.
Right.
If you could trust your legs and know that I can make a cut, make a throw, glide on the field. And you kind of look at Lincoln Riley quarterbacks that he has had in his past, Caleb, Kyler, and Baker. They all were able to make things happen by keeping their vision down the field, but trusting their legs and trusting their surrounding. You kind of, you know your periphery a little bit, and that gives you a chance to make a throw or make a decision. You're not overthinking the process. You're playing like you're in a backyard. It's not going to be a West Coast offense where it's 3 steps, back foot hits and you're gone and the ball's out. It's knowing when to, how to dance around, how to make a throw, what you have to do to keep the play going, but also at what point do you have to run? Just take off and go and get down. Be more confident in your abilities and don't play scared. And it's easier said than done, but I think that's where if he starts trusting the offense and the receivers out there running routes and trusting his own skills, because obviously he did well at UNLV, but if you can trust your legs, trust your vision, the passing game will open up because your legs will then become a threat to that defense they're going to have to respect. But once you get that confidence in the offense and the trust of the receivers to work with you in a scramble drill perspective, you're going to be in good shape.
250?
If he throws for 250, I think against 250 total yards. I don't think he's over 250. I think he can run and throw for 250.
If he had over a 250 game, you would go, okay, that was a pretty darn good game against that defense.
That'd be efficient. And you have to look at completion percentage and interceptions got to factor in there because you could have, 4 big chunk plays late in the ball game for, 30, 40 yards to really bump that total yards up. I would look more at completion percentage. Are we getting 60? We always talk about 60, 65%. You're in that range. Okay. If he's completing like 54% of his passes, are some of those interceptions? Are they knockdowns? Are they throwaways? Are they drops? Like, where's those incomplete passes coming from against his defense? Or is he seeing ghosts in the secondary, from Notre Dame? If he's completing a lot of his passes, that means that the ball, most likely they're sustaining drives, and that's a positive outcome for USC.
Yeah. Sam Darnold is going to always, forever hate to live that down about seeing ghosts, man. All right, Fresh, let's go to another game. This one originally we had circled early on in the season, early in the calendar. You talk about, we were so excited that this game was ending the season, and now it kind of is like a dog fart in church. Kansas State Wildcats, 8-3 on the year, 5-3 in the conference. They're playing Iowa State. Iowa State's 9-2 on the year, 6-2 in the Big 12. I believe there's so many scenarios out there.
Yeah, folks, they just released this. Technically, I think, according to Big 12, as of Sunday night at 8 o'clock Eastern time, I think 9 teams were technically alive. If in order, 9 different things happened to people. Technically, I think I saw someone on Twitter go through and somehow got West Virginia to win the national championship because they're 6-5 and 8 different things had to happen for them plus to win their game to get to the Big 12 title game to win that and then go to the playoff. It's absolute chaos. I think Iowa State, Arizona State are in the best spots, the two of them, to navigate to Dallas, Texas and play in that game. But technically everybody else is still alive except for Oklahoma State.
So what do you got for Kansas State, Iowa State here, Fresh?
First off, Farmageddon. This is going to be a fun one. Can Avery Johnson and Giddens and that Kansas State offense keep the ball rolling? The defense has definitely not played up to snuff and up to standard this past few games. There's been a lot of holes in the secondary. Guys have been kind of struggling. The offense has been moving the ball and scoring. The defense is just really not getting off the field. So with that being said, that Kansas State offense, Avery Johnson and company are going to have to outscore Iowa State. Rocco Becht and that passing attack for the Cyclones is going to be there, and they're going to be able to put points up on this K-State defense. So you're going to have to score and sustain drives. At times, Avery, you look good with your legs and your arm, but you make some erratic decisions in the passing game that really, I think, have your coach kind of scratching his head, your offensive coordinator, fans, myself. You're like, where's that ball going to? Trying to do a little bit too much. You have a big NIL deal. You are, viewed as the next one at quarterback at K-State, which there's a very strong lineage of QBs that can play for the Wildcats. You have your purple Cadillac or whatever. Like, there's a lot on your shoulders. And I think you've been trying to do a little bit too much at times. Just calm down, take a breath. Look what you did when you played the Arizona Wildcats. It was you versus Fafita. They came in, you just diced them up. When you played versus Kansas had a big lead, and you have somehow rallied the Wildcats and got them back to a win. Be calm under the moment. This Iowa State defense is pretty good. Coach Campbell has them ready to go. You're going to see some disguising coverages. You're going to see some weird spots. There's going to be an emotion flying through. Let the plays come to you. Do not try to do too much. If you have to throw the ball away, throw the ball away. Sometimes it's better to take a sack than have a turnover and punt the ball and play the next down. But touchdowns over field goals in the red zone are going to get you wins. So you've got to be efficient when it comes to that perspective. Use your running game. Use your feet. Use your eyes. You have the ability. You have the skills. Put it all into one and get it done. Iowa State on their side, it's there for the taking. You guys have had a little stumble there midseason. You faded, but you're still in the Big 12 conversation. You go ahead and take care of business. You beat the Wildcats. You find yourself heading down to Arlington, Texas, and Jerry World playing for a Big 12 title. Look, the Big 12, for all the Big 12 lovers on this call and on this podcast listening right now, there's only one path for the Big 12 to get a team in the playoff. That's winning the championship game. There's very, very, unless we see an unmatched amount of chaos like we have this past weekend, again, I don't see two Big 12 teams making it. So you've got to just focus. I have one path. Take care of where my feet are at right now. Win this football game. Get to Arlington. Take care of business there when that moment presents itself. Do not think about going to Dallas, Texas right now. Think about playing K-State and taking care of business. Rocco Becht, you've grown throughout the entire year. Your offensive line's played well. The running game is hasn't been as fantastic as in years past with David Montgomery and Breece Hall, but the passing game is definitely there with the receivers helping you out. Again, just like I said for Avery Johnson, you manage yourself, manage your emotions, make your throws on third down, navigate the offense, and you'll be just fine. You don't have to win 40-0. You just have to win the ball game. Keep your season going. I think Iowa State has what it takes. They've shown they can keep themselves going. They've been able to stem the tide a little bit. And this is going to be a great game. It could be 17-10 football game, or it could be a 41-40 game. For excitement of view and watchability, give me a 38-35 barn burner, pun intended, in Farmageddon. Cyclones survive and get themselves punch a ticket to Arlington, Texas, and we get a chance for the Cyclones to be in the playoff. But this is going to be a fun one. Definitely do not miss it.
I am super intrigued with this game here, Fresh, because I love that they're calling this Farmageddon. I think that's hilarious. I love that Rocco Becht and Avery Johnson are both sophomores, because while I don't think the season, and again, Iowa State still has the opportunity to go to the Big 12 title game, I don't think the season worked out the way Kansas State or Iowa State really had dreamed about it. And in a different world, maybe, Iowa State is sitting there at 9-2. I mean, they're still, again, we shouldn't, get lost as prisoner in a moment here. This could still be a 10-win football team for Iowa State. Would be a phenomenal year. And
10 wins means something. 10 wins means something.
And Kansas State, same thing with you. Like, you take a look back at that Houston. I think they're always going to look back at that Houston game and kick themselves for it. I legitimately think that we're looking at the two teams that are going to go into 2025 as the favorite for the Big 12. These two schools are going to have the two best returning quarterbacks next year. I'm sitting here going through my mind here of saying who else is going to be coming back.
Daniel's back. You'll have Levitt back. I will say the Big 12 is going to have a whole heck of a lot of good quarterbacks coming.
Right. As long as they stick around too and don't get poached from different other schools. Right. I'm intrigued by this one because which one of them like has that moment? Because here's the other thing too. If Beck or Johnson have a moment in this football game, they could easily be like the early season Heisman talk about guy going into next year because they're both in their junior year. They both have put up stats. They're both going to play in what people are going to consider marquee programs. I'm not talking they're going to be maybe the favorite because there's going to be some other guys up there for that award going into next season, but their name is definitely going to be in the conversation. And I think if Kansas State were to pull the upset in this one, because they are a 2.5-point underdog right now, both of these teams are going to be in the preseason top 25 next year.
I mean, they have two of the best coaches in college football, not just the Big 12.
Right. I love Matt Campbell.
Matt Campbell and Coach Kleiman, what they both have done, they develop programs. They develop through the walk-on programs. They take guys in as freshmen. Like you're going to come in and probably sit for a year or two, but as a starter, you'll contribute off the bench and you'll really be in there. But you develop as a player, as a man. You learn the culture of the program, and that's where these programs right here, where they might not have the NIL funds at an exorbitant amount, but you develop at a core. You're recruited there and expected to be there for 3 to 4 years, and you are going to learn and become part of it at the core and play for each other. And then that's where you start. We talked about Iowa in our other preview. Iowa State, Kansas State. These are these hardy Midwest programs who have to develop at the core, offensive line, defensive line, disciplined, hardworking, blue-collar players that are going to give it all for each other every single down.
Yeah. I got Iowa State. Give me Iowa State -2.5. I like that. I like that line a lot.
It's going to be a fun one, I'm telling you.
Yeah. All right, Fresh. Let's go to the state of Tennessee for another rivalry game. Okay. It feels a touch weird to call this a rivalry game, but hats off to the Commodores for what they've done this season. I mean, anyone have Vanderbilt at 6-5 on their bingo card? Because I definitely didn't. Or upsetting people like they've done? I didn't. Tennessee, I'm intrigued by them because realistically, I look at Tennessee. They're 9-2 in the year, 5-2 in the SEC. Vandy 6-5 on the year, 3-4 in the conference. At time of record, Vanderbilt is a 12-point dog in this one. Tennessee's favored in it. Over-under is set at 48.5. I'm looking at Tennessee's schedule here real quick, Fresh. And I look at it, and I say they got the win over Alabama. And then what? That's the rest of their schedule. Now, again, I'm saying this as a person who on this low key roots for Tennessee because I like Josh Heupel as a person.
Their schedule was let down by Oklahoma and NC State really crapping the bed early on.
Yeah.
I think they were kind of looking at that like, all right, we got big matchups early in the year. Really, they looked great, and you're kind of like, well, NC State's a hot mess, and Oklahoma I think Oklahoma's still a hot mess. They just played with a lot of emotion this past Saturday. But that shouldn't be taken away from what
they've accomplished a lot.
Tennessee has morphed who they are.
Right.
In the past few years, we're going to throw the ball, even though they actually were very, very balanced, the previous couple of years in 21, 22, and 23 in the passing and running, mentality. Their passing game was more explosive, and people saw getting vertical in the passing game with the four receivers yeah, I mean, you had Jalen Wright and all those other running backs that were there who were getting 1,000 yards and getting big gains, but that's because the receivers were hitting so deep, they were playing so far off the ball. This year, Nico in the passing attack has been pedestrian. Probably the best word to use it.
That's a great way to say it.
Pedestrian, where I think everyone, maybe it's NIL money, where it's like that's a lot to live up to, or injuries in the receiving core. Nico's been beat up a little bit, some concussion stuff, which is very unfortunate. But they haven't had that attack. But Dylan Sampson in that ground game have been dominant, and that defense has done a complete 180, and they've been actually very, very, very dominant. And I think it's probably why we don't look at like Tennessee hasn't beaten anyone by 50 points. They haven't dropped 40 on them consistently. I mean, yeah, they beat Kent State by 70. It has a different kind of sizzle and feel. But their schedule, like we talked, it is what it is. You got to win your ball games. They've won 9. They did what they had to do. They beat the trash out of they didn't actually destroy Oklahoma, but they beat the trash out of NC State. They got a gift with Alabama and Ole Miss losing. Two teams that hate them with a passion actually did them a solid.
Right.
And they basically been given another breath of life in postseason play. And this is a chance where they can't relinquish it. You're playing Vanderbilt, who I think rode high after. I mean, Vanderbilt still lost to Georgia State, the Panthers in Atlanta. They gave, Missouri all they could handle. They almost beat Texas. They've had their battles, but I think we all look at the Alabama thing and we go, man, they must have won 10 games by now. Like they're still 6-5. There's some of the shine come off, some momentum come off of that Vanderbilt program after a great early year, and they got to a bowl game. Which team will show up? They didn't look exactly that fiery against LSU, and LSU's been a dumpster fire this past 2 weeks. And you kind of worry, like, what effort we're going to get from Vanderbilt. Are they going to show up and ready to play Tennessee, and be ready to combat and compete and give them a fight? On the other side, Tennessee, you can't give any remorse. You cannot give any quarter. You need to go out there. If it means dropping extra touchdowns on purpose just to make a statement, you have to. And I think Vanderbilt and Coach Kirkley need to understand that. It's a beauty pageant at this point for Tennessee. Should they be in the playoff? In my opinion, I think they're one of the 12 biggest. They may be like a 10 seed or 11 seed, in my opinion. I forgot what I had ranked on my article on Spinnable Sports, but to solidify that and to sway the committee's mind and to give you no reason, doubt, whatever, you might have to drop 40 on Vanderbilt because Vanderbilt's had success. It's not a 1-11 Vanderbilt team. It's a bowl eligible football team that's had a big win early in the year and competed with Texas. If you go out there and you drop 40 on them, the committee's like, whoa, they did that to Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt did this. Vanderbilt, you start having those, negotiations in their mind. That puts Tennessee in a better spot. If you go out and lay a dud, if you lose or struggle, the committee's gonna be like, well, all right, maybe you're not that good. So you do not put this in the committee's hands. You have a chance to beat a bowl eligible team, a in-state rival handily. You've got to come out and do it, and you've got to be ruthless. And who knows? You never know what your next season is going to be like. You never know if you're going to be a spot where here we have another chance to make a playoff. You have it right there in front of you. You've got to go out and take it. And this is going to be, I think, a Nico moment. You're going to need a Nico moment in this ballgame at least once, who's going to have to make a couple big throws to really put the Volunteers over the top. Because Clarkley's defense they're going to stop the run. They're going to be able to tackle. How are you going to test that secondary and get vertical in the passing game? I think Tennessee gets it done. I think they cover the spread. It'll be a battle early, and then late Tennessee will just pull away with the depth they have.
Yeah, I quickly checked here fresh. Pierce for Tennessee is still rated as one of the top rated players coming out in this year's NFL draft by NFL scouts. That tells me, even though while his stat line is, I don't want to say average here because he still has 7.5 sacks on the year, 34 tackles there. But it probably also is telling me that a lot of teams are double or triple teaming him, whether they're chipping him with a tight end or what have you. I wonder if Vanderbilt's going to be able to stop his pass rush because he I think needs one more like eyes of the nation, like destroy you type of game, and him going and chasing after Diego for Vanderbilt would be an impressive feat because of his escapability and what we've been able to see him do against defenses as well. Here's the interesting one, though, is I'm looking for NFL things, and this popped into my head. Let's take a guy like Dylan Sampson, is currently rated as a 3rd/4th round pick, and this was updated about a little under a week ago. So November 19th, I think, is the update on this one last time I saw. Dylan Sampson, 22 touchdowns on the year. Is this the best that you think he's going to do, or does this kid come back another year? He does have one more year left of eligibility. I mean, he's shown that they fit together, though.
I think they fit together, but I think what Jalen Wright's year last year and his speed and his success in the offense, I think that actually, from an NFL perspective, hurts Dylan Sampson, because you know what they see? They see a guy who did the exact same thing for the most part. And the 22 touchdowns, that's a different story, but the yards per carry, the explosiveness in the backfield, they're going to look at, well, the passing game takes guys out of the box and spreads out the defense and allows a lot more running lanes. The threat of the deep passing game puts the defense on their heels and allows running backs to be successful. I think Dylan Sampson's done a heck of a job. 22 touchdowns is still 22 touchdowns. I mean, the dude gets in the end zone. In this day and age, NL is great, but if you're about to go to the NFL, you strike while the iron's hot, because you never know what's going to happen. You take your payday, you get in the league as fast as you possibly. There's only so many hits on a body a running back can take in their career. And if you have a chance to go to the NFL, it takes a lot of a commitment to the program, to each other, to want to come back and choose team over self. It's happened before. In 2017, when Sonny Michel and Nick Chubb both came back for the Dogs and led them to the national championship game, that was a commitment to the team. Because Nick and Sony could have had an extra year in the NFL and taken off that wear and tear on their bodies, but they gave it all. Every person's different, and it has to come down to, what do you see and what do you value? Do you have that special, yes, I want it in the NFL, or, does your family have a financial need that you see to get to the NFL and get that money? And we can't speak to that. That is a different scenario, and everyone's personal lives and everyone's, status in situations different. And they have, I always tell my team when I'm at work, like I manage a whole team at an institute at a place, and it's like, what's your why? Is your why for your family? Is it for this or that, or whatnot? And everyone's why is different, and that's what motivates you to go to the NFL or keep playing. And sometimes it's equal, and you have to make a tough decision. But he's a quality running back, and the NFL is going to need running backs no matter what. So do what's best for you, Dylan. You had a heck of a season, and hopefully you get much success in the NFL when you do finally get there.
You like Tennessee in that 12?
Oh yeah, I like them to cover that. I think that eventually they're going to add touchdowns, because they know they have to make it a beauty contest in the end.
I think so too. All right, Fresh. Fun rivalry game here. It is the Palmetto Bowl. It happens in the Palmetto State. It's the South Carolina Gamecocks. They are 8-3 on the season. They're facing their in-state rival, the Clemson Tigers, who are at 9-2. Clemson is a 3-point favorite in this game. 2.5, sorry. And over-under is set at 49.5. I take a look at Fresh. This game dates all the way back, played for the first time in 1896. And Clemson leads the all-time series 73-43. 30 win difference there for this one. Fresh, I'm going to say this. I believe the coach of the year in the SEC is Shane Beamer. I have slowly brought myself over to being on the side of the South Carolina Gamecocks. Here's my reasoning why. Bogus call in the LSU game. They shouldn't have lost.
It's plural.
Calls.
Calls.
They had Alabama on the ropes, and it took a miraculous effort by Alabama in Tuscaloosa. The only game
there were shady calls in that game too.
The only game that they legit lost and got kind of boat raced in was the Ole Miss game back in October. This team is going DJ Khaled on everybody. All they do is win right now. All they do is win. And you take a look at what they've done and win convincingly, going into Norman, winning big over there, winning by 23 scores.
That was a beatdown.
Beating the brakes off of Texas A&M and exposing the fraud that is Missouri. Fresh, this is why I say Shane Beamer should be considered the coach of the year, because you take a look at what the level of expectations he had to start the season. He has exceeded those expectations. And again, you beat Clemson, who I don't think this Clemson team is very good, because we want to talk about people in their scheduling. Clemson really has played nobody this year outside of Georgia week 1, got boat raced by them. But look at every team that Clemson's beat. It's awful.
Yeah. Well, first off, folks, you don't know, like, there are rivalries in state of South Carolina. These two fan bases hate each other.
Oh, they do. So much.
Every time this game comes up, I always go back to, I think I was 2004, when the two teams literally fought on the field, and old Lou Holtz, who was still coaching for South Carolina, was trying to chase down his players and get them on the sideline. I mean, the guys were throwing helmets. Like, this is a pure, deep down, Tigers and Gamecocks, they hate each other.
Right.
And there's a lot, this is where I'm actually shocked this game day did not go to this game. I mean, yes, it's Texas and Texas A&M, but they were already at A&M earlier in the year, and they started the season out there. You had a chance to go for this game. Yes, Kirk Herbstreit, you're not broadcasting it, but being there for that, giving these two fan bases and this rivalry a national showcase would have been really, really cool. That apart. Clemson, technically, you're still alive in the ACC title game. Obviously, this game has no impact on that, but you kind of want momentum going into that championship game if you somehow were fortunate to back into it. Cade Klubnik and this offense, they rebounded a little bit, and they had a nice little run there. They were scoring points, and it's kind of faded off the past like 3 or 4 games. What team are we going to see coming out here on Saturday afternoon in this rivalry? Are you going to pick it up knowing that, yeah, you're the favorite on paper, but the momentum is not on your side, and I have a feeling you're about to get run. You're about to get blown out.
Yeah.
This Clemson defense, you've gotten solid linebackers, but that you had a couple injuries. The guy suspended the game versus Pitt. You didn't look that fantastic. The passing game really wasn't spectacular. I think the last image I have in my mind is watching them versus Pitt, where outside of Klubnik running 60 yards for the game-winning touchdown, it was a very dysfunctional offense. They couldn't run the ball. The passing game was The defense was really struggling with Pitt. Even though Pitt shot themselves in the foot like 20 times in the red zone, and the only reason the game was even close, and the reason he had a chance to win. How does Dabo get these guys motivated to play? Where's that it factor? Do you need the rivalry to get you fired up after so many of moments lately? This is a cultural shift for Clemson, because right now you're kind of getting past in the ACC. With Miami and SMU already ahead of you. Georgia Tech's, they're showing some serious life and fighting coming in that direction. Pitt has shown some momentum, even though they've lost, 3 or 4 games in a row, but they showed a great start and some, initial, fire there. Syracuse is looking pretty good. You got to start fending off some competition. Virginia Tech is showing they're showing a pulse. Like, it's not just you anymore. If you want to make a statement and show you're still around, you've got to come in here and take out South Carolina. And, you might not play for the ACC title, but it shows you're still a viable program and you're not just wandering into the weeds of the abyss of other college football programs. So you've got to make sure you make your stand on Saturday, and put up a fight. And there's like South Carolina. This is a debate right now.
Love this team.
They're Norris Sellers, that passing attack. Rocket Sanders has been absolutely amazing, grad from the portal. Had a couple years at Arkansas, great, banged up last year, comes into South Carolina, revived, re-energized, and just taken off, literally like a rocket. They said, him and Sellers in the backfield, both mobile, both fast, both lightning quick, making things happen. Offensive line playing well. And then Kennard and Dylan Stewart off the edges on the defensive side. That pass rush is relentless, amongst everyone else in that front seven that keeps coming. They are getting it done. Shane Beamer, he's a little brash, but you know what? He owns it, and the team plays for him. they get guys. They are overshadowed. They're overshadowed by Clemson, overshadowed by Georgia, overshadowed by Alabama, overshadowed by Tennessee. But you know what? The guys commit to go play in Columbia. Williams-Brice, anytime the game is there, is a hostile environment. It's a special environment. They can do something there in South Carolina. Spurrier did it. I think they can do it too. And this is a chance for them to springboard it and take it to the next level. And that kind of leads me to the point here. They're actually playing for their playoff lives. If they go out and put a beat down on Clemson, a beat down.
Right.
We've had who's that bottom 3 or 4 teams in the playoff consideration? Right. They're going to have 3 losses. Yes. But the committee's supposed to pick the 12 best teams outside of those conference championship, requirements, the 12 best teams. And if that team is playing at a high level and blowing people out and having no remorse for their well-being whatsoever, that has to factor in somewhere. And this is where I'm going to take this back to 2007. 2007, that Georgia football team, they had a rough start to the season. They got beat by Tennessee, and it took a win over Florida, a dominating win over the Gators here in Jacksonville to really get them to, wake up a little bit and get people's national attention. They wear the black jerseys, they smoke Auburn. They don't even play for the SEC title, but they are ranked in the top 5, and they go to the Sugar Bowl and destroy Hawaii, and they get the preseason #1 ranking the next year. They didn't even play for their own conference title, but they got an at-large bid to the BCS, and were ranked in the top 3 or top 4 at the end of the season, just because of the dominant effort down the stretch. And if there was a 12-team playoff that year, they probably would have gone on with that momentum they had and won a national title. I think they were actually better than LSU that year. But the way it played out, they were just going to the BCS. But that momentum at the end of the year means something. South Carolina has that right now. If there is a spot, if they can make an impact, if they can make a statement for the committee to look at, that's going to give them something to really value when they come down to that final, decision-making process on December 8th. And that kind of actually puts me in the next question. We talk about, should a 3-loss team be in the field? Now, here's what I'm going to ask you right now, Seth. If Georgia goes to the SEC title game, which they're already booked in, and they lose, that puts them at 10-3. I'm assuming they beat Georgia Tech. They lose to Texas or Texas A&M. A 10-3 Georgia football team who lost in the SEC title game had to play an extra game, or South Carolina at 9-3. Who do you put in the playoff? There's one spot only. How do you make that decision?
Okay, so I need 2 things answered to me. What is the final score of this game? How much does South Carolina – do they just destroy Clemson? Is it like a field goal game?
I'll say South Carolina wins 31-17.
Okay, so 2-score win there.
2 touchdowns.
How bad does Georgia lose in the SEC title game?
Single digits.
Single digits. So 30-21. 9-point loss?
There you go. We'll give you 30-21, yeah.
Whoa. Oh. That makes it extremely difficult.
And now that's the pain of having to play an SEC or playing in a conference title game where now you're being punished for playing a 13th game.
Right.
And that's like, there's going to be arguments both ways because we come down to, you have to play your schedule.
I think Georgia goes in just because they made the SEC title game. Now, here's where the thing would change. If you tell me that Georgia loses, again, I think the difference for me was that you said Georgia loses a single-digit game, okay? If that goes into a 2-touch, let's say South Carolina beats Clemson by 2 touchdowns and Georgia loses by 2 touchdowns, I think then I would go with South Carolina in that scenario because of, and again, you're right. You are punishing teams. The difference, and I think South Carolina, I love this question. I really do. Because South Carolina.
We actually might get this question in 2 weeks.
Right. And South Carolina is in a unique position that I don't think and again, I'd have to sit down and look at it for a few minutes, but I don't think anyone else in the country would be in the position that they would be in. Because I believe that majority of people who watch college football would say South Carolina should have beaten LSU. They should only have 2 losses. They will look at that Alabama game and go, Okay.
They should have beaten them too. Like
should have beaten them too.
That game late. Yeah.
I think that would come into play. I think those type of feelings would come into play. I think if it's a single-digit loss, or let's say flip-flop that, Clemson loses to South Carolina by a field goal. Like South Carolina wins 24-21, and Georgia loses 24-21. I think it's slam dunk Georgia's in. Slam dunk. I think what comes into play is double-digit win by South Carolina over Clemson and double-digit loss by Georgia in the SEC title game. That's when I think things get really interesting.
So this is look.
That's a great question.
That's a great question. And these are the conversations I think they have in college basketball committees all the time when they come to NCAA tournament time.
Right.
In March now you're looking at extreme similar cases.
Right.
And then you're also going on top of that, you're going to have the fear of other conference fan bases like, well, SEC bias, one's going to basically replace the other. You have to make a decision. You got to roll with it. Up to this point, they have not set a precedent, but you know what? Up to this point means absolutely nothing. It's all been just show rankings until December 8th. So whatever they've done, who cares how they rank them? Because we obviously have multiple games to be played and scenarios to play out. But that right there would be a decision that would probably have to be discussed for an hour or two and maybe re-voted on a couple times so they come to a consensus.
Right. And again, when I will scream SEC bias, it's a lot of times it's like Missouri being ranked in the top 25. That's what, when I refer to SEC bias, that's SEC bias. South Carolina if you put South Carolina in, I think the more interesting thing would be if South Carolina boat races Clemson, and let's say the committee drops Indiana to like 11 or 12.
Whew.
And
I'm switching those.
Yeah, I might be inclined to switch that. Although, again, you got to say that they're equal footing and two more losses. But again, people who make these decisions are going to look back and go, yeah, officiating was bad, but you did wind up losing. Gosh, South Carolina makes for a very intriguing debate for a lot of these teams.
Yeah, that one's, I'm actually happy I'm not in that conversation because there's going to be so many different scenarios are going to play out.
I got better one even for you.
And you know what, people, like South Carolina fans, your feelings might get hurt, unfortunately, with the decision that comes out. If I'm you right now, go into it with zero expectations.
Right.
Because if you get left out and you came in with some high hopes, it's going to gut you it's going to hurt a lot. You're going to feel like Florida State last year. Go into it. If you get in, it's absolutely amazing. If not, you're like, hey, we had 3 losses. We're building momentum. We got a lot coming back. Now we know where our goal is for next season. Because it's a long off season. We all know when the season's over and if you end it in December and we don't play football again until August or September, that's a long way to think about a game. It could be great for you for motivation in the off season, all the off season drills and spring practice, or it could be really just something that dwells on you and ruins you because you're like, we were so close. We don't know when we're going to have this opportunity again. So just let it happen. It's in the committee's hands. There's 12 people or 16 people. And that's why the golden rule for this, for any kind of tournament, never put it in the committee's hands to make your fate. Cause that's a painful moment.
I was even thinking of a scenario about South Carolina versus Miami. Like if SMU wins the ACC's spot.
And the Miami schedule isn't very strong. And they had 2 calls versus Virginia Tech and Cal that may have gifted them 2 wins.
Right. And we'll close the door here on the Palmetto Bowl here a minute here, fresh. But the thing that's most impressive to me, South Carolina, is really the defense. I know Sellers and Sanders are going to get like all the headlines and stuff. But the fact that this team's got 39 sacks on the year, 12 interceptions, and they have forced 18 fumbles. Like, this is a hard-hitting football team. As a Georgia fan, you don't want to see South Carolina next year.
Believe me, there were many Georgia fans on message boards and Twitter. We all agreed the year we dodged Vanderbilt in South Carolina was actually very fortunate.
Right.
If we had to switch out Auburn or Mississippi State for Vanderbilt and South Carolina, we would not be playing in Atlanta in December. That's how those two teams are very talented this year. They had a lot of momentum. And they're scary.
All right, Fresh. Let's go to
before we move on,
okay.
Give me South Carolina. Put the boots to Clemson. Like this game will be over early.
Clemson is the favorite. Hammer South Carolina. Hammer.
They're going to get smoked like a brisket.
Yeah. All right, Fresh. Let's go to the rivalry game that is only known by the words "the game." It is the Wolverines. They're 6-5 on the year, 4-4 in the Big Ten. They're going down I-75 to Columbus, Ohio, to play the 10-1, 7-1 in the Big Ten, Ohio State Buckeyes. At time of record, this is a 20.5-point spread. Over-under is set at 43.5. Now, I'm going to let you go here, Fresh, and then I got something to say. What you got going on for the Wolverines versus Buckeyes?
Well, first off, I know we've heard chatter about, well, if Buckeyes win the Big Ten, they go to the playoff and grind day. If two of the three scenarios, he'll be okay. If you lose to this Michigan football team, after the past 3 years of losing to them, you would have to win, in my opinion, if I was the Ohio State booster, if I was one of the big money boys, I don't care if you win the Big Ten.
No, you don't play in the Big Ten if you lose this.
Well,
they won't play in it.
Well, I don't care if you don't play for Big Ten title. I don't care if you make the college football playoff. The only thing that would be able to save your job in my mind is if you won the national championship. Because losing to this Michigan team, that's downright god awful. There's no excuse. This Michigan team has no offense whatsoever. That's why it's a 43, because they expect Ohio State to score 35 of those 43 points. I don't care who the quarterback is for Michigan. They have no receivers that scare me. They have Donovan Edwards, the running game, like that. It's okay. Colson Loveland at tight end. Okay. You know what I'll do? I'll put Caleb Downs on Loveland all day long and let everybody else go 10 on 10, and I'll still win. If this Ohio State team is not pissed off coming into this football game, they all should be embarrassed and pull out a scholarship. Like that's how bad it's been the past 3 years and how bad Michigan is right now. You've got to come in here and bludgeon the Wolverines. Take out pain and aggression. This offense, the running game, the receivers, especially with Will Johnson not even playing for Michigan, there's no one on this Michigan football team that I fear. I don't care. You know what? Email Michigan and Connor Stallings your playbook and still run the ball right at them and beat them. There's not enough dudes on that Michigan football team to actually man up for a full 60 minutes and beat Ohio State. The cupboard is bare. I fully expect Ohio State to cover the 20.5 with ease. There is a nastiness about this Ohio State football team. There is something at the core of this team that I have to rank them second because they lost to Oregon, but I personally think they're the best team in the country. And this is a chance to really validate that if you go out there and put the boots to Michigan. If this game is even competitive in the fourth quarter, then I will have doubts about Ohio State going forward in the playoff. Because right now, I think they're the number one team in the country. I think they're going to beat Oregon if they make the Big Ten title game, and they're going to be the number one seed in the college football playoff. But how they play versus Michigan is really going to tell me how they're going to be able to navigate the rest of the season. You've got to be angry. You've got to be ruthless. You've got to be merciless and go in there and absolutely destroy the Wolverines. This is the rivalry game. This is what you've been getting beat over your head. Technically, you have not beaten Michigan in this decade. Yes, they dodged you in 2020, but you still haven't beaten us since 2019. You need to release some pain and anger. This is in the shoe. You know what? Actually, I would have preferred this game be in the big house to really just dominate them in their own stadium. Because sometimes it's even better going on the road and beating the trash out of somebody, especially a rival. But you know what? It's in Columbus. Take care of business. Do not give up an inch. Ryan Day, pour it on. Because you know what you're going to do? You're going to send a statement in recruiting to, I don't care how much money Bryce Underwood was given by David Portnoy and anyone else, those boosters, getting 12 million or whatever. 10, 12 million through NIL. You can have all the money you want. You're not going to win a dang thing because we're going to put the boost to you every year. That's the kind of statement you need to make, not just to Michigan, but to Oregon, to anyone else in that league, that you are there and you're going to run through everybody like through crap through a goose, to quote George Patton. You need to do it and do it big. Do what Urban Meyer would do. Urban Meyer he had no soul, and this is the reason we had no soul for rivals. Like, he would take you to the woodshed and then beat you up behind the woodshed again. You need to have that kind of sense of attack here and go after him. I fully expect Ohio State to do it. They had the talent, they had the depth to do it. Do they have the heart to do it? We'll find out on Saturday. No matter what, I think Ohio State covers 20.5. And Michigan and Sherrod Moore, you can have your recruiting wins all you want, but there's still a lot of holes in that roster, and it's going to take more than paying one quarterback $10 million to save it.
Fresh. This is a game that I hate when my team loses. I'm a diehard Ohio State fan. I love college football, and I can get behind a lot of teams and root for them. This is the one game that I cannot stand when my team loses this game. Ryan Day has done everything that he's supposed to have done this year. And again, your only blemish on your record is a 1-point loss at night in Oregon in a very, very hostile environment. Again, that is a 50-50 game. That is a coin flip of a game. That is an understandable loss there. And you got an opportunity to rectify that wrong here in about a week. This is a game where you just get angry. And I hope this Ohio State team plays angry. I hope they come after them and they go nonstop for 60 minutes against this Wolverines team. Again, I'm going back to something similar that I said about the Indiana game, though. My one concern with Ohio State is the offensive line. Having to replace the multiple guys on the offensive line, the only thing the Wolverines have, and again, you talked about Will Johnson not playing, the two names that concern me for the Wolverines, Mason Graham and Josiah Stewart. Combined, they have 12 sacks together on the year. Those two guys, if you let them, can disrupt what you're trying to do. The linebackers are half decent on this defensive side of the football. But I'm going to say this. You get to 24 points, this Wolverines team is not going to put up, what did they put up against Northwestern last weekend? They put up 50 against Northwestern. They're not going to put up 50 against you. They put up 17 against Oregon, and your defense is just on par. 15 versus Indiana. Yeah, 15 versus Indiana, 24 against Sparty there. They put up 7 against Illinois here. This offense is pretty inept for the Wolverines. You got to play your gaps. You got to stop the run against them, because that's the one thing that they've beat you with the last 3 years, is being able to run the football down your throats. This is gut check time, especially for that front four of the Ohio State defense. You need to get after them and get after them hard and fast, because this game means so much to this fan base. I am not a subscriber of, if they lose this game, Ryan Day's job is on the line. I've never been that way. I think sometimes that people get lost and preserve the moments. I hate when they lose this game. Don't get me wrong. I am not going to be a happy camper at all if anything were to happen like that. At the same time, too, Emeka Egbuka, Carnell Tate, Brandon Innes, Travion Henderson, you guys have tasted what it's like not to win this football game. Sonny Styles, Jack Sawyer, JTT, all of them, Ransom, all of you have tasted what's like not to win this football game. The Ohio State team, they get gold pants every single time they beat the Wolverines. there's a large quantity of these guys who do not – I don't think a single guy on the roster has a pair of gold pants.
Yeah, the last one was 19.
19. So I don't think there's anyone on this team. But now it's Jeremiah Smith time. It's Quishad Judkins, Caleb Downs. You guys come into this rivalry. You guys need to know. And again, I think the one guy who I'm so intrigued with is Caleb Downs. The reason being that he personally has played, after Saturday, will have played in the two greatest rivalries in college football between the Game and the Iron Bowl. I think he is going to understand the severity of this game, and I think Caleb Downs is going to be a wrecking ball in this football game. Chip Kelly, Jim Knowles, you've been phenomenal the last couple of weeks. You've adjusted your offense and defense as games have gone on and have shown that you're willing to attack them in different ways and that you're willing to make those adjustments as the game presents different challenges for you. Indiana was doing all sorts of movement pre-snap on their defensive line. What did Chip Kelly do? Chip Kelly ran right at them. Chip Kelly got the ball to his playmakers. He got the ball to Abuka. Abuka had a great game. The only guy who didn't have a great game against Indiana is the guy who I think is going to ball out in this game, Jeremiah Smith. Jeremiah Smith, your legend is already cemented. You have crossed Chris Carter, NFL Hall of Famer Chris Carter's rookie record. Now it's time to go make a name for yourself. Now it is time to have that shot of you beating the Wolverines and cementing yourself in Ohio State legacy right now. Fresh, I'm picking the Buckeyes to win this game. I'm picking them to win. I hope they're winning big. I'm going to say this is going to be a 2-touchdown win. But if given the opportunity, Ryan Day is going to pour it on the Wolverines team and take out years, and I do mean years of aggression. And if people think that Ryan Day does not get the significance of the rivalry, you are crazy, because I think this game is eating at him. I think the minute that game struck 0 against the Hoosiers last week, he was mentally on to Michigan. I actually think that he was dreaming that why did they have Will Howard score that touchdown with about a minute left or 55 seconds left? What was it? Because he's sitting there thinking, that's the Wolverines, not the Hoosiers right now, so we're going to score a touchdown on them because we're going to run up the score on it. Fresh, Buckeyes win this one big, but I still have my moments of doubt right now because of the offensive line. And again, offensive line injuries scare the bejesus out of me because that's one easy way to derail a team.
I mean, the fastest way to get to a quarterback is right up the A-gap. You have, two solid tackles there for Michigan who can get that job done. So you can hold down the interior of the line, it'll allow it. But I think across the board, I'm going to even say coaching and player-wise, Ohio State is superior on paper. They just have to actually produce and get it done on the field and really make a statement. If they don't, people are going to start asking a lot of questions. Donors are going to be like, hey, we're giving you all this money. We went to the NIL. We handled all this cash. You need to start getting it done, and you didn't. Like that's a lot of undue pressure, that most of us really can't relate to. You gave me a great book that was written by Jay Paterno called, I think it's Pressure Cooker, about a fictional head coach. Hot seat. Where he actually coaches at Ohio State, but it's a fictional coach. And they basically took stories from college football coaches across the country over the years, and they kind of all threw it into one coach's profile of losing a bowl game and the pressure to get to the next season. And you kind of read the stories, you're like, there's no way this is actually true. And at the very end, Jay's like, no, these are all true factual. We changed the name of the coach, but these are all factual stories. And you kind of realize all the pressure from the boosters, the president, assistant coaches, other coaches recruiting and trying to snipe your own coaches, players on the, dealing with outside, lives, recruiting visits that go wrong. It's not just wins and losses. There are so many things that people are held to, and it's a very stressful moment. So if you have a chance to beat your rival or that pressure's on you, you got to find a way to release it and get it done, because that just weighs on you and weighs on you and weighs on you. There's only so much humans can take from that kind of pressure. So, you kind of hope for Ryan Day's, case that he gets the job done. Because if he loses to Michigan, that's a moment I don't want to wish anybody to be in that situation.
Right. And to take a look at something that, you want to talk about how great Ryan Day is with quarterbacks. Will Howard is the number one most accurate quarterback in college football with over 100 pass attempts. Graham Mertz technically has a little bit better completion, but hasn't completed 100. He hasn't attempted 100 passes, plus been injured half the year. So he doesn't count. But you take a look at Will Howard, and the guy that we kind of thought he was a good quarterback, K-State, look what he's done with that guy. Like, Will Howard has become a great quarterback at Ohio State. 26 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Same thing, you take a look at him compared against Dylan Gabriel. They're outside of the yardage Gabriel has on him. And Gabriel's also attempted 70 more passes than him. So
yeah, he's done a good job. Very efficient in the passing game.
Gosh, yeah, they need to win this one, Fresh. Just win it for my mental well-being because, I don't want to even cross that bridge. I don't even want to do it. But I'll say this: if they win this one, I think Day is safe for a while. Like, I think that all that noise is over for at least a couple of years. So, all right, folks.
The team will also play, I think, a little more freer too once that pressure's off.
Right. All right, folks. You've been listening to the Irrational Confidence Podcast. This is episode 2 of Rivalry Week. Guess what? We got a 3-parter. Part 3 will be coming out as well. We're taking a look at the late rivalry games on Saturday afternoon. We're going to record that one as well, so don't miss out. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, because it is exciting times. These are great football games. This is the best week of college football all year long. Make sure you're checking out SpinnableSports.com because the Irrational Confidence Podcast is part of Spinnable Sports. Special thanks to our producer, Drew. Without him, none of this is possible. Like, subscribe wherever you get your podcast from. Leave us that 5-star review and engage with us in the comments. Tell us what we know, what we don't know. Heck, it's getting crazy out there, Fresh. Another great week, but we got one more episode to get through here, and we're going to get to 12 games. Wait, no, I'm off on that. 14 games through all of Rivalry Week. I'm impressed by our due diligence here to be able to talk about 14 different games.
Hey, there's not much football left. The games become more important, but there's less of them. Embrace every single one of them. Embrace every snap. Football is a treasured gift that we get to receive in the fall. We got to make sure we own it and embrace it at its peak. So with that, everybody, dial into SpinnableSports.com. Subscribe to Spinnable Sports YouTube channel. Subscribe to our podcast on all podcast platforms. Spread the word. Engage with us on X, Twitter, Twix, whatever you want to call it. We got a lot more coming to you. Love to engage with you guys. Hit us up whenever you possibly can. Banter with us. Tell us we're good. Tell us we're bad. Smart, stupid, whatever you want. We just want to have fun and talk college ball with y'all. And with that, we'll talk to y'all later. Bye, y'all.